Great. And good evening, everybody. Welcome into this edition of the Animals Football Insider. Yours truly coming at you from the great confines of West Des Moines, Iowa on a night in which, well, you know, things are about to get pretty hectic around the National Football League, among other things, as we get ready for what's going to be an exciting weekend here on the Animal Football Insider. Glad you could join me tonight. We got a lot planned for you, including we are going to talk about, of course, these boys up here. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We'll talk about the other game, as the Florida Gators defeated South Carolina. Some news coming out of there. Some news coming out of the Buccaneer camp as well today. And we'll talk about that as well. And we're going to be joined a little bit later on by Graham Hall, writer for the Gainesville Sun, talking about the Florida Gators and everything that's college football related. But with me here and all, where we like to begin, obviously, to see we got anybody talking right now. And I'm sure that we'll have people chiming in later on. If you're watching me either on Facebook Live or you're watching me on YouTube or through Twitter, Periscope more specifically. Welcome to the show, my friends. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that really never ends. So much to talk about tonight. But you know what? Where do we begin? As always at the very top and talking about the Pewter Power Boys or these boys behind me. For them, they went into the game last Sunday afternoon playing at home against the San Diego Chargers, a team in which, well, a lot of people thought maybe they probably weren't that good. Maybe they were decent. Maybe they were even going to be a half-decent team in 2020. But for the Buccaneers, that didn't matter. All they wanted to do was beat their team, advance their winning streak, and move on to a big game coming up this Thursday night, which is why we have our broadcast here tonight, because the Buccaneers, they're going to be playing on Thursday night against the Bears. More on that a little bit later on the show. But for the Buccaneers, well, it was a game unlike that one that I really never expected. Down by as much as 17 points in the first half, San Diego had them up by as much as 24-7. And yet, what can you say? The Bucs came out in the second half. They played some exciting football. And let me tell you, they really did play some exciting football as they defeated the San Diego Chargers by the final score of 38-31 in the ballgame. Bonnie K, hello there. Bonnie K's already joining me on the show tonight, minus a little icon. But, hey, that's up to her, Anyways, welcome to the show and hope you enjoyed. And please post some comments if you can about the game tonight. But, this was a very interesting game. In the first half, really had a lot. Really was not the most delicate half of football that we've seen this Buccaneer play in a long time. I mean, let me just give you some examples here in the first half. This is from an offensive standpoint. The Buccaneers only had 13 first downs. Let's see here. They were 37 on third down conversion. Only amassed 177 yards. They had 40 yards rushing as compared to the Chargers, who only had 29. Defense played very well and only had 106 yards in the first half. But, man, they came alive in the second half, and behind Tom Brady, led the Buccaneers on a 5-touchdown performance to lead this team to victory. On the day for Tom Brady, as a matter of fact, he was, as I find it here, 30 of 46 for 369 yards, 5 touchdowns on the day. He did have an interception, okay, which, you can debate whether it was a good or a bad play. But in the end, I mean, he was able to lead this team to victory, and he did it so well. Top receivers on the day, Mike Evans had 7 receptions for 122 times. He was targeted 8 times on the day. Ronald Jones, he was targeted 9 times, caught 6 balls for 17 yards. Scotty Miller, 5 catches, 83 yards, and he scored a touchdown. And How about Ronald Jones? 20 carries, 111 yards on the day, and in the process, got the Buccaneers their win in that ball game. Now, Justin Aber, that kid showed a lot of poise and showed a lot of class, a lot of patience, despite being rushed by this Buccaneer defense. He finished on the day 20 of 25, 290 yards on the day for a passer rating of 137 yards on the day, and it was quite a performance on the day, and for the Buccaneers, their first 3 drives. Here's what's interesting: looking at the drive chart, in the second half, they scored three touchdowns in a field goal. On the 5 possessions in the second half, they scored on 4 of them. Now, how's that for coming back and winning a ball game like that? It was just amazing. See if I can get some defensive numbers for you. Lavonte David, 10 tackles on the day. Let's see. Shaq Barrett had 2 tackles, 5 tackles, 2 assists. Got a sack in the game, as well as Jordan Whitehead, who had 4 tackles, but he also had a sack on the day, and that was very, very impressive. Now, this game turned out to be costly for the Buccaneers in a number of ways. And when we say costly, we talk about injury-wise, because we had the injury right here in my right here, injury report that I've obtained through my wonderful skills, and several players are listed as doubtful for their game on Thursday night against the Bears. That include Mike Evans, who's still nursing that ankle injury. As you recall, Evans had that ankle injury in the first quarter. We didn't know if he was going to come back, and as I said before, 7 catches for 122 yards and 1 touchdown. Ronald Jones, as I said, 111 yards on 20 carries. I mean, it was to see Mike Evans come back and play like that. It was really impressive to see. I was very impressed with the way that Ronald Jones had played, and he just keeps getting better and better and better. And I got to tell you, what's making this team so good is the way the offensive line is playing. They're playing so well together. I mean, Tom Brady was even commenting today that it starts up front for these guys, and the fact that they're playing so well is he says it's helping to make my job a lot better. He'll always have one of those problems every now and then, but for the offensive line anchored by Tristan Wirfs and company, they are really doing an outstanding job, and they don't mess around, people. This is a mean bunch of guys on that offensive line, and they're really carrying the weight of this Buccaneer offense. Make no mistake about it. We're going to get more to the injury report a little bit later on, but as I was reading through and preparing for today's game, or review of preparing for today's show, this offensive line did a very good job. I mean, I believe his name is Jonathan Bosa. I forget his name, but he's a defensive lineman. That offensive line limited Bosa to 1 sack on the day. I mean, not 1 sack, 1 tackle on the day. That's pretty good for a guy like Bosa, who's very, very good and does an outstanding job playing. So he really does an outstanding. I mean, this offensive line really. Vinny Gerasi joining me as well. It's always good to see you. One of the things about Vinny, I tell you, Vince is a diehard Charger fan. Okay, so we were watching the game at Buffalo Wild Wings together, and we really had a good time. And unfortunately for Vince, this team came out on the bad end of the stick. Hey, Bob, what I got you? Boza for San Diego. What is his first name? Is it Jonathan Boza or Jason Boza? I forget his name. So if you get a chance, type that in the chat room. But the offensive line for the Buccaneers did an outstanding job being able to hold him to just one tackle on the day. Anytime you're able to do that, you really accomplish something with the way this offensive line been playing, especially when you have a rookie like Tristan Wirfs playing. Taking a look at some more notes here. Now I was looking at some other things here. Hey, look, when we do a show here, we Joey Bosa. That's his name. Thank you very much, Joey Bosa. He's the brother of Nick Bosa, who also plays in the National Football League. So he does an offensive line really did an outstanding job. And how about the defense? The way they played, the way that Shaq Barrett and company played, and those linebackers, they did just an outstanding job. And you got credit that defense, even though they came out early in the way they played, the way that San Diego played against our defense early and getting out to the lead that they did was really surprising to me, and I was very impressed how that defense buckled down and start playing the kind of football that they are able to play. You're surely the animal here coming at you on a special Tuesday night edition of the Animal Football Insider. We're coming tonight because the Buccaneers are playing on Thursday against the Bears. So that's going to be a very interesting game too. And we'll talk more about the Bears game in just a couple of minutes. But I was reading some notes here about Tom Brady and the fact of the comeback win. For the Buccaneers, the game tied for the second biggest deficit the Bucs have ever climbed out of to win a game. And the last 27 times they were in a deficit hole like that, they had lost. They did come back last year in Week 14 from a 10-point deficit last season to beat the Indianapolis Colts. But, 10 points down and 24 points down, that makes a big difference. Tom Brady, for the most passing games in NFL history, Tom Brady threw his 93rd game, throwing 300 yards in a game, and it's 3 behind Drew Brees in the most touchdown passes in the regular season in NFL history. Drew Brees has 552 TDs. Tom Brady, Drew Brees has 555 yards. Tom Brady has 552 yards. And if you guys want to post anything in the chat room, please do. We will welcome your questions and comments. Let's see here. Buccaneers held the Charger defense to 46 yards on the day. And that's coming off of the 42-yard performance last week that they had against the Denver Broncos. So I think what you're seeing through all these notes and all these stats that I'm giving you is that this defense is slowly but surely coming together. Now, it doesn't go without saying, though, that it costed them big time in terms of some injuries that have transpired. And we're going to talk about those injuries in just a minute. I notated here. So, Mike Evans right now has the most touchdown receptions in the National Football League with 5. So, it's going to be very interesting. And Drew Brees was a Charger once, and in fact, that's where he started his career with the San Diego Chargers. And I want to say that Brees was part of a major deal, but maybe I'm wrong on that. was it maybe I want to say probably the Eli Manning deal, but I don't think that was the case, because that's right, because Eli went to the Giants and we knew all that had transpired, so that wasn't it. So let's see here. And also couple of other side notes from the game on Sunday. Let's see here. Jordan Whitehead, second game in which he's had at least one sack on the year. Ronald Jones led the Buccaneers with 111 rushing yards on the day, recording his second 100-yard rushing game of his career. And it marks the first time since 2014 that the Bucs have had two different running backs record a 100-yard game in the same season. Bobby Rainey and Doug Martin both pulled off that feat. And a couple of little tidbits here and there and all, but all in all, a very impressive game by the Buccaneers. And Vince, even you got to admit that this Buccaneer team really impressed you down the stretch. So how they respond coming off of a short week now, that's going to be the interesting tale, because now they are going to hit the road and go to Chicago to take on the Chicago Bears. It is a short week for them because they're going to play on Thursday Night Football on the NFL Network, and I also believe it's going to be on Fox. Let's see here. And Vince responds about the Brees deal. Nope, he broke his arm and the Chargers released him, or he was a free agent. Not sure which. I think he was a free agent. I think if you go back and look at that, I think he was a free agent. So I really would have to look at that. Now I'm fixing to don't go nuts here. So he broke his arm and the Chargers released him. Let's see here. So just checking out, seeing the people that are inside the chat room and all, and hope you guys will post some things a little bit later on. Now, Vince replied, waiting for Tom Brady to get real old quickly. You know, I'm going to say this about Tom Brady, and I really have never truly been a Tom Brady fan, but I will tell you, the man, he responds. He responds to the challenges, and what's nice about it is that they're learning from him. They're learning from him how to win ball games, and I guarantee you, when the Bucs were down by that 17-point margin, you can bet that Tom Brady had a few choice words to say in that locker room. I would be very interested in finding out what happened inside the locker room at halftime, because it really was a very, very surreal to see that happen. So now they focus, and with Tom Brady being there now, you know, this is going to help them, because it's not too often that you see the Buccaneers get to play on Thursday night. Tom Brady has been in this position a few times, so you know that his expertise and how he leads this team is really going to play big down the stretch, and hopefully these guys will learn from him. And I really do believe that that's going to be happening. So let's see here. One more interesting note about the game. Brady, he also recorded his first 300-yard game as a Buccaneer. He joins Steve DeBerg and Brad Johnson as the only Bucs ever to combine 300-plus yards with 5 touchdowns in a single game. Wow. And he said one other quarterback has done that before more often. I would like to know who that is. Drew Brees, followed by Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Dan Marino. Yeah, decent players. You know, what are you going to do about that? So the Buccaneers now will focus their attention on the Chicago Bears coming up Thursday night. The game will be on Fox, and also you can see the game on the NFL Network. The Bucs have released their injury reports. Actually, both teams have released their injury report as of tonight. Mike Evans did not participate. Leonard Fournette did not participate. Chris Godwin did not participate. He suffered that hamstring injury and never came back in the game. Rob Gronkowski has a shoulder injury. He played well. Obviously, O.J. Howard, who we didn't bother to mention during our broadcast earlier, he suffered a torn Achilles, and now he is done for the year. So now it's going to be interesting to see how these other wide receivers like Scotty Miller and company step up. Speaking of Scotty, he's also on the injury report. He has a hip groin injury. That doesn't look like he's going to play, nor Jason Pierre-Paul and Justin Watson. So the Buccaneers have a slew full of injuries on their list. For the Bears, Khalil Mack has a knee injury. He's been limited in his participation. Deon Bush did not practice. Akeem Hicks is a defensive tackle. He practiced. The biggest name on here, Khalil Mack, he's been limited in his participation. So that's going to be interesting to see how well they play out. Now, the Bucs are going to leave tomorrow, travel to Chicago, and then play the game on Thursday night. A couple other notes from the team and things that we saw during the course of the day. Obviously, we had the COVID games that happened. Patriots and the Patriots played yesterday. I forget who they played against. They had lost. And part of that deal is the fact that they traveled on that same day. They traveled on the same day. So, and who did they play against? Okay, I know I'm going to blow my mind here. I know it was, let's see here. Okay, Joe. Because it was Kansas City at Baltimore, and Kansas City won that game. And then the Patriots, they played against who did they play against? I know I have it here somewhere. I'm not blind. I see it here. But anyway, so they had lost that game. The thing about the Patriots, they had traveled that day. So wasn't Carolina? What? Now I'm having a brain moment here. I can't remember. So who did the somebody help me here? Who did the Patriots play last night? Anyways, they lost that game, and now because they had traveled on the same day. It's not too often that we see teams travel on the same day. Buccaneers did it a couple of times, and I know the league has been trying to do that, get teams to travel on the same day. I'm at a loss here. I cannot remember who they played. I can't remember who they played last night. But not important. What is important now is that they're focused on this week and get ready for the Chicago Bears. Now, there was some interesting news that came out today. And let me pull up Greg Allman here because he reported the news on Twitter earlier concerning a Buccaneer player who has been suspended for steroid testing. So let's see here. And we know about the injury report here. They brought in a running back, Ika Cedric Ware. He was on the preseason squad. Bucs return. This is what Greg Allman reports. Bucs return specialist kid John Barner, who was elevated from the practice squad to play in the last two games. He's been suspended 4 games for violating the NFL policy on substance abuse. And he wasn't likely to play this week because he's in concussion protocol anyways. So that tells you what's going on with that situation. But for now, the Buccaneers, they they will now focus their attention on the Bears. We told you their injury report. It's going to be interesting to see who starts. Bears, I think, are saying there might be Nick Foles that's going to be playing, or it could be Mitch Trubisky. We have no idea who's going to play. But I thought I was reading something interesting the other day, how Mitch Trubisky, how last year in 2018, when the Bucs played the Bears, they had lost that game in Soldier Field. But it was kind of like a rallying point for this team, because at that time, that's when this team started playing and getting better and better. And they marked that Chicago game as a turnaround for the defense and the way they're playing right now. So kudos to the defense and the defense. So I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking forward to seeing how well they handle the short week, how they handle the offensive line protection of the Bears. The Bears are pretty much banged up, but so are the Buccaneers. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that game. Again, the game's going to be 8:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Central Time, and of course, we'll have all the reports on our next edition of Insider, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. So, take a little swig, and then take this off. Reach for this right here. And yes, we will talk Florida Gator football. And why not? Because if you look at what happened Saturday afternoon when they took on South Carolina, you saw a Florida Gator team that was determined to come out, make some things happen, and boy, did they do an outstanding job in the course of the game. Where are my notes here? Oh, here we go. We'll always love to have notes here. Always like to be prepared for the inevitable. But it was the opening game. It was the opening weekend for the Florida Gators in Florida Field. A limited number of fans were able to enter Florida Field. I believe it was like 17,000. And the final, the final attendance figure for that game was 15,120 fans. But that doesn't include the cardboard cutouts, okay? And hopefully Graham Hall of Gainesville Sun, he'll be able to join me a little bit later on here, and we'll talk about the game and have a little bit of fun. Graham Hall of the Gainesville Sun does an excellent job with recruiting news, knows the Gators inside and out, and really I hope to learn a lot from him here in this interview coming up in just a little bit. But 38-24 was the final score for the Florida Gators, and the defense played a lot better. They didn't play up to the standards that Gator team wants to play, but man, they sure did. They sure did take it up another notch, especially for Kyle Trask. 21-29 for 268 yards on the day, 4 touchdowns. He had 1 interception and was sacked twice on the day. Kadarius Toney, wide receiver, 6 catches, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. But as always, the Kyle combination, Kyle Pitts, Kyle Trask. The combination just continues to be rolling on. Pitts had 4 catches for 57 yards and caught 2 of the touchdown passes from Kyle Trask on the day. And to see this team just get we know it's only week 2, and I think what a lot of people need to understand before they get all in an uproar about this team and all, they had not been practicing a lot, okay, because of COVID and everything. And I think it frustrated the coaching staff. I think it frustrated everybody. And I think they only had like 3 or 4 live hits sessions. So, this team appears to be getting better and better during the course of the year. So, checking to see Graham Hall is supposed to be joining me here in just a few minutes. Let's see here. Okay. So I don't need that. I need to get that here. Now, let's see. As far as while we're waiting on Graham, let's talk about the games that are coming up this weekend. And of course, we know that. Okay, wrong week. So, wait a minute. We already. Wow. I'm missing my days. I'm missing my days because we're already in week 5 of the National Football League. Tampa Bay, Chicago's that'll be an 8:20 game, 7:20 here Central Time. Other games to keep your eye on: Carolina will be at Atlanta. Jacksonville will be at Houston. By the way, Houston fired their head coach, Bill. I forget his name, but the Texans have fired their head coach, general manager Bill O'Brien, yesterday, and so the way we'll be finding out who's going to be taking over. Romeo Crennel, he's going to be taking over as the new head coach of the Houston Texans on an interim basis. Who's going to be the GM? They haven't figured that out yet. Let's see here. Elsewhere, other games that I'm very interested in wanting to see. Las Vegas at Kansas City, Cincinnati at Baltimore. And how about the play of Joe Burrow? I mean, in his 2 games, he's been playing some very good ball. And so this is a kid that I think that is just going to be getting better and better, just like Justin Hebert of the San Diego Chargers. And I think what we're starting to see, folks, is that we're starting to see a new era of quarterbacks coming up in the ranks. Justin Hebert, Joe Burrows, other guys that I can't mention here off the top of my head. But it's going to be very interesting to see how well these guys perform. Let's see, Philadelphia will be at Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Miami will be at San Francisco. Tua Tagovailoa, who's now down in Miami now. Daniel Young, I believe that's the name. Daniel Young with the New York Giants. Daniel Jones with the New York Giants, and of course, the Denver Broncos, and they've got a good quarterback there too. And I got to tell you something: do not keep your eyes off of Jeff Driscoll. Do not keep your eyes off of Jeff Driscoll. He's going to do some good things with that Denver Bronco team as they get going. Back to the Florida Gators now. As I said, they took on the South Carolina Gamecocks in Florida Field. 17,000 fans maximum if you include the cardboard cutouts. And for the Buccaneers and for the Gators, they won that game. What was the final score? 38-24. I kind of don't remember that, but somebody who does remember that game is a gentleman that I'm very pleased to bring on right now. We like to call him the Minister of Information for the Florida Gators. He works at the Gainesville Sun, and very happy to join me right now, Graham Hall. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Joe. How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can hear you just fine. I was hoping you're doing it by phone, so that's great.
I can switch to a camera if you'd like to do that. If you want to give me 2 minutes.
I would love to, so the folks can see you if you don't mind.
Let me hop back in the show in 1 minute. Sounds good?
Okay,
And
whatever
I'll
you want to do,
I'll have
whatever
video
you're
up. Give me
comfortable
1
with.
second.
Okay, that's fine.
Absolutely.
That's fine because if people are going to talk to me, I want them to be able to. I want to be able to look at them. So that's me. So hopefully we'll get Graham Hall back on here in just a minute, and we'll have a great conversation. And we went over the stats for the offense. Now for the defense, they played. They really played a heck of a game. Kyle Elam, he had six solo tackles on the day. Zach Carter had 1.5 sack on the day. Brenton Cox had a half a sack. Um, David Reese, he also had a good game as well. This was just an all-around great performance that we saw from this Florida Gator team, and it just made for an all-around great performance. Now, some interesting notes about the Florida Gators on their game. Let's see here. For the Gators, they have scored 35 points in each of its last 4 games, and they've scored at least 35 points in consecutive games against SEC teams for only the second time since the start of 2009. The last time they did that, you got to go back to 2012 when the Gators beat Tennessee 37-20. Then Kentucky at 38-0. Kadarius Toney had 86 yards on the day. But wow, what a great performance by the Kyle Company. Just like this guy always gives us a great performance every now and then. His name is Graham Hall, the minister. Some people like to call him the Minister of Information.
I appreciate that. I like that.
I like to call him other things, but this is the family shuffle. We'll just keep it up. Graham, thank you so much for joining me tonight. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's my pleasure to be here and talk. All things Gators. That's my favorite thing to talk about, as I'm sure everyone knows who, like you said, is familiar with that name out there. Especially my pleasure to join you for the first time, Joe. When you asked me, I jumped at the opportunity because any chance, I saw you're a Bucs guy as well, and you're in Iowa and keeping that fandom alive. The local teams, I respected that as well. So absolutely, I had a chance to join the show and talk to you today about a pretty exciting, Gators start. I know there are some things defensively for sure. I think you could say we could nitpick a little bit, but you got to be impressed with what you've seen so far through the first 8 quarters, especially out of the team's offense.
Yeah, and I think that when you take a look at how well this Florida Gator team has played, I don't know when the game. First of all, before we go any further, how great it is to have college football back again, especially the Gator football back.
No, I was very worried. I know that there was kind of a reputation that some people were thinking that the season shouldn't go off because it wasn't safe. And I understand that. And I'm not saying that there weren't some concerns that needed to be addressed. And I think that even members of the team definitely echoed that sentiment as well. But just to have it back and see that all the other conferences are joining in and that you can do it relatively safely, because I think a lot of people are realizing that we're going to have to find ways to go about normal life with this virus being here. And you can't just lose college football. You can't lose the NFL. You can't lose pro sports because of something that may not go away before you find a solution, in a sense. So I'm just so glad it's happening. I've said this all the time, though, Joe. This is such a strange season in a sense where the team that really does handle the virus the best is going to have the most depth, in a sense. And we've never had a situation like that where you can sit here and say a team is going to have, fresh legs in the fourth quarter because those kids didn't go out to, Midtown 2 weeks ago. They social distance. They did all the things that they're supposed to do. That actually may come into play this season on top of just playing the games themselves. It's so strange, but, that's another factor. I'm just glad that it's back. Let me just say that.
And I think the word that you're looking for is acting responsibility. Okay. I think that's what the thing that Dan Mullen has preached time and time again about acting responsibility. And they've done that well. And the COVID tests on these guys have been They've been blessed, been very limited. I read somewhere today that there might be gators that tested positive for COVID. I don't know what you know about that. Do you know anything, or is it just a
I can give you a few
story?
details. I'm not going to disclose who it was, but that
No,
player
don't,
was.
don't do that. Don't do
Oh
that.
yeah, they weren't at the game on Saturday. They had been away from the
Okay.
program for I want to say about 5 days since last week when it was a possibility that awaiting test results this player would test positive. Um, wasn't a situation where they were around anyone, and I expect it to just stay as that one. uh, there was some initial belief that it could be another false positive in a sense, which Florida actually experienced about 6 weeks ago with an assistant coach. There was a little bit of optimism, but that player subsequently was told did test positive again a second time. So um, that's just what I've heard so far. I don't think it'll be um, a huge problem moving forward. But if you look at what's happened to places like Notre Dame, UNC, if you do not get that one test or you don't take cautious
Yeah,
steps, that can quickly become 18, 25, and then you're talking about postponing games, or who knows how that's going to come into play at the end of the season if postponing games is going to end up messing up some of these teams that may need one or two more games to be college football playoff eligible in a sense. We don't know what's going to happen.
just like the false test with one of the Patriot players that we saw that
Yeah.
didn't happen. So all that this and there. So let's talk about let's talk football. Let's talk about the game Saturday
Absolutely.
night and
We got
Saturday
all the bad stuff
afternoon.
out of the way.
Huh?
We got all the
Yeah.
bad stuff out of the way, all the
We,
crazy stuff.
let's get it. Let's get all the bad stuff out of the way, and let's talk about a lot of good things that happen because the Kyle and Kyle combination. They just keep like the commercial said. They just keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that Kyle Pitts, there were, I think, so limited ways that he could improve from last season, and most people kind of magnified those little ways he could improve. It was all his blocking, put a hand in the dirt, nitpicking in its finest, if you ask me, because when you go out there and watch him, he's a guy in a tight end body who moves like a wide receiver at times, and that's no. We're not conflating that in any way. That's just what you see out there. I think
No.
that Florida did a really good job at getting him involved extremely early against South Carolina. You look at those 3 of his 4 receptions in the first quarter, 53 of his 57 yards right off the bat. He had that 4-yard touchdown
Yeah.
that came on that amazing Trent Whittemore two-handed snag, where he looked like he got 40 inches up in the air and then sets up Kyle Pitts' touchdown. It's going to behoove Florida to get him involved early and often, and then that's going to open up guys like Trent Whittemore, Kadarius Toney, Jacob Copeland, Trayvon Grimes, and as you saw in Florida's offense, that's what they want to do. They want to get Kyle Pitts involved early so that they can spread the ball around. 5 different Gators have caught touchdowns this season. You saw Naquan Wright catching the ball out of the backfield.
Uh-huh.
You saw Trent Whittemore with his 2 passes. I mean, Florida is going to mix things up, even though Dan Mullen ultimately is doing a lot of the same stuff that he's been doing at Mississippi State and has been doing for the last decade plus, honestly. So I think that Kyle Pitts, you cannot overstate his importance because the rest of the offense kind of unlocks when he gets involved early, and it makes everyone else's job a little bit easier. But I think that his improvements kind of pale in comparison in a sense to the leaps that Kyle Trask has made. I was expecting Kyle Trask to come in and take a few leaps and be a lot of what we saw last year, but without a spring, without an off season, without a chance to build this chemistry that everyone loves to talk about with that new wide receiver crew. There was a chance that he could come out there and throw 2 picks in a game, which especially in the opener. Go back to that Miami opener last year where Florida has 4 turnovers against Miami that just looked a little bit rusty. I thought that was going to be kind of magnified with no spring, no
Yeah.
conditioning. It wouldn't have been outside the realm of possibility if that were to happen. So for Kyle Trask to go out there and do what he's done right now, jump up the Heisman odds right now,
I
I think
know.
you need to give him so much credit for that because I know he's tired of hearing about the 2-star barely making it to college football, Power 5, whatever you want to call it, storyline. But you cannot talk about his success right now without mentioning how far he's come. And I know that there's going to be a point where Florida fans get a little bit tired of it, but that point may come when Kyle Trask is an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and I was, I'm like you. I didn't know, really didn't know what to expect, and it leads me up to where I want to go with start of this conversation here tonight. Go back to last year. Go back to the end of the season. They play in the bowl game. You see Felipe Franks there and a knee, and Felipe decided that he was going to leave and transfer to another school. And I know for a fact that he did not want to go. I know for a fact that he didn't want to go. So why? Why
Yeah.
not? Why not stay and fight for the starting job? Was it there was just too much of a great friendship between he and Kyle Trask, or was he ready to move on?
It's a fair question. I think that I want to I don't want to use the term revisionist history because it's easy to question that, but I gotta one in answering your question, I gotta give Felipe Franks a whole lot of credit for the fact that he won that Arkansas starting job because
Yes, he is.
if you had asked me in October of last year if I thought that he was going to be ready after that injury fully to win over a starting job in the SEC when he wasn't even fully healthy by that March when spring practice would have happened, I don't want to say that Felipe Franks benefited from the pandemic or anything like that, but he probably wasn't ready to go out there and win that job full strength in spring camp. And the time that he took in the offseason to build the offense and that relationship with Sam Pittman virtually was how he won that job and was ready by fall camp. So, it is kind of, in a sense, I do think if Felipe Franks had stayed here at Florida, he wouldn't have been fully healthy, and Kyle Trask would have just put a firmer grasp on that starting job. But it's an interesting point. I think both guys are very happy with the situation and how it panned out because they wouldn't have both been able to be the starting quarterback on Saturdays if they were both still in Gainesville.
And here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting about the whole thing. If you stop and think about it, technically, Kyle Trask shouldn't even be on the team right now because remember, 2 years ago he broke his leg, and was it 2 3 years ago that he broke his leg in a practice, and it came at a time in which they even questioned whether or not they want to replace Felipe Franks. Trask has a leg injury, and that solved that whole debacle. Trask won't even be here right now, but as it turns out, the man is just he's just unbelievable. Talk about resilience. It's just unbelievable. Um, Talk about resilience, though. The Gator defense, that's a different story altogether, and it's a team that needs to really improve big time.
Yeah, I definitely I gotta separate. I think the 2 points right now. In a sense, I think that the defense, they'll be the first to tell you that they think that they have to improve if they want to reach those expectations that they've spent the last 9 months talking about. But if you really, and I know we said we kind of got the bad stuff out of the way. I hate to make, it pandemic talk again, but the lack of conditioning, the 20-hour requirement that the SEC put in with that 6 week period where
Yeah,
guys who had, yeah, that is, that's, I think you talk to people and they miss it all the time that, normally in July and June, you would be doing unlimited workouts,
that's
getting
right.
guys up at 5 a.m. voluntary. That didn't happen this year. So you
No,
got a lot of guys showing up out of shape, not in ideal shape, and that 2 week period was to catch everyone up, and you really couldn't do too much conditioning wise. There
mm-mm.
were a lot of programs. Florida did this a good bit, but they also did some live tackling in the scrimmages. There were some programs that
Three of
with
them,
the
right?
risk of, yeah,
Three live tackles.
they had 3 live tackling
Yeah,
practices.
yeah,
There were, but that is, yeah, that still pales in you would get about 30 in spring, and
yep.
then you'd get 15 in spring, and then you'd get about 30 in fall camp, and some of those would be 2 a day. So you're talking 45 um, days of tackling and conditioning that have just been kind of lost. And when you take that out, I think you're seeing a lot of timidness and people, especially you go back and ask any Florida fan what some of their biggest gripes are about the beginning of some games is that Florida has shown, like every other program, arm tackling is that term that's been something that every program has been guilty of, no matter the year. And then you have the pandemic on top of that, where guys aren't tackling and they're already being told to socially distance and stay away from other people, and you don't know who's got what, and you don't really trust what another school's procedures are because you aren't watching them. And I think it's just led to this crazy conclusion of you're just having poor tackling performances, whether guys are hesitant to fill the gap or tackle guys full force, or if they want to use just their arms and keep their heads away. I don't know what it is, whether it's all the conditioning. I think you're just getting everything combined in one is going to lead to some very prolific offenses this year, especially in the SEC, where we are used to having defenses win football games. I kind of made a joke to someone that if Florida has to become like the 2009 Oklahoma Sooners to go out there and win every game 51-45 and have no players get injured, which is, a big thing from the last two games, having all your starters to be able to keep coming back and rotate in young guys and even if you give up a touchdown, in my book, if you get all your starters back and still win the game and gave up a few extra touchdowns, that's a bigger win in my book than having Brenton Cox on the field in the fourth quarter and having him possibly get injured. That's a long-term thing that would absolutely hurt the team. With that being said, I think that Florida knows that they need to improve their tackling and improve some of their communication issues, especially in the back seven, the linebackers and the secondary. I think can improve that as well. But it's a weird year. I don't know how much is Florida's fault and how much is just all the circumstances,
And I was reading some of the Twitter comments by you and several other people were notating that the guy said, look, this is on us. We have to get better, and it's nice to see that these guys are actually taking the responsibility, saying, look, we know we can get much better than this. So I think that's an outstanding thing. It's nice to see that these kids are actually taking responsibility. And you mentioned about Brenton Cox. If I'm not mistaken, reading earlier, isn't he a transfer from Georgia?
Yes, absolutely.
I thought about that, and I'm going to talk more about transfer in just a minute. But they gave up 212 yards passing in that game, and now they face a Texas A&M team who I don't want to say is a bad team, because we've seen it where anything can happen on any given Sunday, or in this case every given Saturday. But given what I've heard and seen about Texas A&M, I don't foresee this being a problem for the Gators.
Yeah, everything I just kind of said, I think that there's this belief. I'm not trying to get on some diatribe here, but everything I said about the Gators, the criticisms about the pandemic and everything like that, I think other programs have greater problems with those things. And I've made the case here that Florida's continuity on their coaching staff, the resources from UF Health, the testing capacity, the area that they're in, I think that those are big factors that are going to come into play here. As for Texas A&M, they're in SEC football now, but I think their secondary is still kind of stuck in the Big 12 in a sense. Mac Jones just went out there and threw for 460 yards or something like that, and 5 touchdowns. Kyle Trask is the Heisman front runner right now after 2 weeks, and you look at that Jimbo Fisher coach defense. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, look at his record against Florida and look at how they've recruited in the last few years. Joe, you can vouch for this as well. I think that any Florida fan, if they're going to defend one thing about the Dan Mullen program, it's not necessarily going to be the recruiting. It's going to be how he gets the most out of his athletes and the on-the-field coaching and adjustments. When I look at Texas A&M, 24 points against a Nick Saban coach team, that's nothing to scoff at necessarily, and they could come out there and put 30 on that Florida defense, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think that the Aggies' secondary is going to be the weakest that Florida faces all season. That may be bulletin board material for them in a sense, but I think the proof is in the pudding, and you look at the stats right now through 2 weeks, and you look at how Jimbo Fisher's team has recruited the position. I think that you could make the argument that they're certainly in the bottom half of defensive backfields in the SEC, and the way that they performed through 8 weeks is not reassuring Jimbo Fisher's team, I'm sure. I'll say one more thing before I turn it back over to you. There's this belief in the NFL, and I think you can vouch for this, that sometimes when a guy gets paid, he can coast. He knows what is expected out of him. I never thought that it was a great idea to give Jimbo Fisher his $75 million up front and give him a trophy that didn't have the year on it yet, as if he'd already won a national championship. I mean, they thought that winning the championship was when they hired him. So I think that you're going to just get 7-8 win seasons out of that team every single year until something changes. I don't know what it will be.
I don't know either, and that's something that I don't know why anybody would give somebody a $75 million contract like that. I mean, they better have some big boosters willing to buy out that contract.
Oil money, right?
Yeah, they're going. I can't foresee him. When you consider the teams that they're in the SEC West, the Alabamas, the Auburn teams. Wow, what's happened to Auburn, man? I mean, you thought that they'd be playing better than what they're doing right now. That's
because the seat isn't hot for Gus Malzahn. I know that a lot of people believe that out there. That right is when people are saying that Gus Malzahn's going to get fired at Auburn. He comes out and
no.
and win season. He felt good coming into this year. No, jokes
Well,
aside.
why not? He has a great quarterback in Bo Nix. Why not?
So that's the argument. If I'm an Auburn fan, I'm not so much sick about the 6 points against Georgia. I'm sick about the fact that Joey Gatewood is up there in Lexington and just got cleared for the Wildcats, even though they're 0-2. You may have let the wrong quarterback leave. I know that Bo Nix has the family ties, but as a Jacksonville guy, I was well aware of what Joey Gatewood was doing up there in Jacksonville, and by all accounts, he was kind of a Cam Newton 2.0 in a sense, and to let him leave because Bo Nix's family, the relation to that program, I know that's a tough decision, but that it looks like right now that they may have made the wrong one.
We've explained to me Joey Gatewood, who he is, and what happened.
He was Auburn's backup quarterback. He was kind of like they had a quarterback battle, and one of them decided to leave, kind of like Felipe Franks. Kyle Trask and
Gotcha.
was waiting to be ruled eligible. He's probably going to be the new Kentucky quarterback, and by all accounts, there was a reason that he was pushing Bo Nix for the job. And Bo Nix, his family has deep Auburn ties. His dad, the former Auburn quarterback as well, and so Gus Malzahn went with him, and Joey Gatewood is back up in the SEC at Kentucky, and we'll see pretty soon here. But after these first 2 weeks, I would be a little bit worried if I was a Tigers fan.
Graham Hall of the Gainesville Sun joining me on this edition of the Animals Football Insider. You're the Minister of Information. You're in the know-how. You know a lot about what's going on at the University of Florida. Let's talk about some recruiting news. You got a tip last night about possible 2022 signing.
Yeah.
But then, and you'll talk about that in just a minute, but how about the news that came down an hour later of Jordan Pouncey being declared immediately eligible from Texas to play for the Gators? Is this a big deal?
I think that Jordan Pouncey, the biggest thing that people said about him was, he helped get Ethan Pouncey here. And while that's necessarily true in a sense, I heard some really good things out of Jordan Pouncey in workouts away from the team this season. His leadership, for one, I think that his recruiting ranking and then what he did at Texas, I think left a lot to be desired, certainly. But this is a guy that I think can still be molded into an extremely, extremely capable SEC receiver. And I think that, if anyone's really going to do that to him, it's obviously going to be the Florida program. And that's why he wanted to transfer. I don't know if you'll actually see him this season. If anything, I think you'll see him in the latter half of the season if they really need him. But as a graduate transfer, I think that he still should get another full year, if not 2 full years, in Gainesville, because he graduated Texas in just 3 years as that 2017 enrollee. And then you got to remind me on the last name. I know it's Sam is the first name.
I don't know. I just read about the 20.
Of course, my mind's blank right now, but Tom
yeah. I'm not really worried about. I'm not worried about.
Let's talk transfer portal real quick. I'm going to switch.
Because that's what I was going to do. That's what I was going to go to next with it. Because, and for those who are joining me, usually it used to be that college football would be about coaches doing a lot of recruiting, but now that this transfer portal has become new, it seems like Dan Mullen's using this trick to the best of his ability, and it's working.
Yeah, I definitely see why there are some concerns about the transfer portal, because it's kind of made free agency in a sense. But if you really boil it down and think about it, I think it's a more humanistic approach. Let me try and define what I'm saying by that. It used to be that if you were a a good salesman. You come in there to a room and convince the kid to sign with your school, and once they sign that letter of intent, you could totally flip your persona. You could trash talk them. You could do whatever you wanted. We know certain cases of that have happened even recently. I mean, look at what Trayvon Grimes' report said about it happened to at Ohio State on the field. It has certainly happened recently. You know, a guy gets to a program and finds out the guy who was selling him sweet nothings on the recruiting trail is nothing like that guy at all. I think the transfer portal has held coaches in line in a sense because you really, I don't want to use the word coddled, but you have to treat those recruits and those high value prospects the way that you treated them on the recruiting trail, because nowadays they can absolutely get up and leave and go to a coach that will treat them that way, because there are an abundance of them right now if you are a 4 or 5 star prospect. You know, Greg Knox has certainly gotten a fair share of criticism for his inability to get those guys, those high value top guys on his board at signing day, you know, outside of guys like Naquan Wright. But I think that if you really want to base it all off his recruiting, you have to factor in what is getting back to guys in recruiting right now about what he's doing coaching wise. Because when guys like DeMarcus Bowman or Lorenzo Lingard or Justin Shorter are going to transfer to a program, they ask the guys in the building currently, well, what's this coach like to you? Do you have any problems with him? Do they, you know, that is due diligence that players do. And to think that does not happen, or that DeMarcus Bowman isn't reaching out to Lorenzo Lingard and Fenley Graham, his best friend, who they played at Lakeland together and with the Gators. If you think that DeMarcus Bowman isn't reaching out to guys that he knows and say, hey, what is Dan Mullen like? What is this and this like, to do his due diligence? I mean, that stuff, the way Greg Knox acts every day, that's going to help him on the recruiting trail with guys in the transfer portal. So it's a bigger picture, I think, than many people love to make it just about signing guys. And because with the transfer portal now, you have to factor in that a guy, if he does the right things, if he puts running backs in the right position, if he develops you the right way, he treats you respectfully, you're going to have a second chance at some 5-star guys. And I think that Greg Knox has shown that twice in the last year.
How did they get to Marcus Bowman? And for those that don't know what we're talking about, Bowman is a player from Clemson under Dabo Sweeney, a great guy, a great coach, and he wants to lead that program. I mean, I know that's a coup for the Florida Gators, but does that make Clemson look bad?
I'm going to give Dabo Swinney a lot of credit for how he came out afterwards and said, we tried to keep him, tremendous young man, did all the right things here, we're going to miss him. Because Dabo is fully understanding that there's going to be more DeMarcus Bowmans that walk through that door. Their recruiting is not going to drop off as long as he does not tarnish this young man who came out and spoke to Clemson media. For those who don't know, after that decision came out during the game, he came out and said, my grandfather was a lifelong Clemson fan. That was one of the reasons I was pushed, or not pushed, but inclined to go there so he could watch me play. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away in June in Atlanta, and then my other grandfather passed away recently, and I just have not been feeling like Clemson is the spot for me. And as a Lakeland guy, I want to be closer to home, closer to my remaining family.
Gotcha.
Play. So he came out and was very, a 19-year-old young man, talked about the loss of a very close family member. And there is this day and age, when you're a high profile, I hate to use a term like celebrity, but some of these 18-year-old, 19-year-olds are a celebrity in the college football world. When you are that guy, there is no privacy in a sense. When DeMarcus Bowman announced that he was transferring to Florida, people threw accusations out left and right. Oh, he wasn't doing well at Clemson, or, oh, Florida is doing so and so and so. People speculate about whatever. I feel for the young man that he had to come out right away and clear up the air and talk about the loss of a family member, because in order to continue chasing his dreams somewhere else, because that is a very difficult situation to be doing that in, when he probably did not expect to be doing that at all when he was signing and committing and dreaming of college football.
I love for you, and again, thank you so much for joining me. This is a lot of fun, and I hope we can do it again, because
absolutely,
I want to talk a bit more, just a little bit more about recruiting. And what people don't understand is that, let's say Greg Knox, who's running backs coach, I think, right?
Yep.
Okay, running backs coach. These guys are not just in the office getting their game plans together, but aren't they out on the trail during the football season, during game week, or are they doing all their recruiting by phone? I mean, I don't know how it works. I mean,
Oh, you basically recruit whenever you have a free moment. So during the middle of the season, you're texting kids early in the morning when they're waking up, when they're training, wishing them happy birthday. I mean, they keep schedules of stuff like that. Edits in their phone, when to send out on special events to kids. In the
Oh
building, they're
wow.
always on their phone texting. Especially virtually, the way a lot of things are done now. A coach, if a kid hasn't seen the building, will pick up his phone and FaceTime with the kid as they walk through on a tour so that they can see, oh, this is the locker room, this is so and so and so, this is the
And that's
so they
such a
actually,
great tool. And given time to COVID, I got to think that that's a great tool.
it
I mean,
is absolutely. And there's so many people who can make it to the University of Florida, can take these unofficial trips, but so many people can't do that, don't want to get on planes. And I think that if many we talked to Stuart Reese last night, the offensive lineman, and I talked about being up front. One of the things that he said, the reason he didn't initially come to Florida was because he didn't keep the open line of communication on his end with the Gators and let them know that he was really interested in. And I thought that was really interesting because people don't know how often that actually is the way that plays out. A staff moves
right.
on, and then the kid comes back and says, "Hey, I was interested in you and you stopped talking to me," and then staff says, "Well, you never texted us back, you never say anything to us." So many of those things are communication problems that coaches are texting and doing tours whenever they can to make it
And
clear that they're interested in someone.
I'm surprised the NCAA isn't getting a hold of this. But hey, whatever works,
They
whatever.
lifted the ban. This year especially, there's no limit for phone calls and text messages between coaches and
Oh,
prospects.
nice. I
Yep,
think
that's
that's
a good change.
and,
Absolutely.
Zoom meetings too. I mean,
You can do unlimited. Yep. I
wow.
think
Well,
I think the argument that they think is that if you're bugging these kids too much, it's going to hurt your recruiting. But they lifted that this year so that programs could have equal resources in a sense to pursue
which,
kids.
which I think is great.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk a little bit about you now. You're a writer with the
Sure.
Gainesville Sun, right? Am
Yes,
I
sir.
right?
Yeah.
You're with the Gainesville Sun, and you have a couple of compadres that work with you. I don't know, some guy named Robbie Andrew and Pat Dooley, I think his name is,
Yeah.
something like that.
They're around.
Uh,
Yeah. We all do some stuff together once in a while.
I got to tell you a great story. I went to Columbia, Missouri last year to watch the Gators
Great place.
Gators play. Yeah, yeah. And the fans are, hey, Graham, the fans are fantastic. I mean, they treat
Yeah.
you very nicely, first class. They were fantastic. And I went to this restaurant, and there they were, Robbie Andrew and Pat Dooley, sitting there talking. That they're just, I got to get some great stories about them sometime.
Sure.
Maybe on our next
We'll
thing.
do them
But
off the record. I got
oh
you.
yeah, of course we
I
do. Yeah,
got you.
sure, off the record, sure. But you a graduate of the University of Florida, right?
Yes, sir. I was
Okay.
born and raised in Gainesville, which is I was so lucky. I got to meet Steve Spurrier and Ernest Graham when I was
Oh wow.
6 or 7 years old. I was extremely lucky to grow up in Gainesville, right 10 minutes from the university.
I don't know. You ever heard of a small town called Trenton, Florida? Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
We
Okay.
we would drive by to Bob's River Place all the time growing up.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's
Well,
still
um,
the mood.
I used to have a cabin on the Swanee River, so
Oh,
yeah. I lived up in Trenton for a year. This was back in the late '70s. Okay, and I don't know if you remember a guy named Mike Dotson who was a reporter at WCJB. Does that name ring
sounds
a
familiar.
bell? Yeah, he used to be report. I don't know if he's still around or not, but I mean, the Gator coverage was just outstanding. By the way, who does? I'm able to watch certain shows through the Jacksonville, Gainesville area. Who's the
Uh-huh.
champion? Who's the champion for great Gator coverage?
Um, in Jacksonville, Dave Waters does a really good job up there. You got to give him a whole lot of credit. Kevin
He
Wells
was
is
on my
another.
show. He was on my show last week, by the way. Great guy.
He was Dave. He's
Yeah,
excellent. He's excellent. We talk every Sunday to recap the games.
I know.
He
I
does
see that.
a
I
good
saw
job.
that. Yeah, great job. Too bad.
Um,
Too bad you couldn't get connected back with him.
we're having no problems right now. I just got to make sure that happens with him next time. It was my video on both ends was messing up. I got to figure that out. So,
Well,
he does a great job. You know, I'm going to be starting a high school podcast pretty soon here, talking about high school football in the area. We'll be talking about Trenton, Dixie County. You know, we have 61 teams in our network between the Gainesville Sun and the Ocala Star banner, and so we're going to start this Gainesville Gridiron podcast pretty soon for everyone who's really interested in high school football, and hearing me talk about it in the area.
That's awesome.
But yeah, you know, I think one of the best things about covering the Gators is that there's so many, you know, talented people. You know, you can really get a good mix of everything. You know, Nick does a great job. Edgar, all those guys. You know, personalities. We're all different personalities, but I think that everyone has a good writer, a good voice in their own right. And
speaking of Edgar,
all the time.
Speaking of Edgar, he's Edgar Thompson, and I forget who he.
He's a good guy.
I forget who he writes for, but during the McElwain era, did McElwain actually like Edgar? Because I would see his press conferences, and it looked to me like McElwain did not like Edgar at all.
You know, I'm going to give Edgar a whole lot of credit here in this sense, because I feel like many people take shots at him, and
all in good fun.
And you know, I like to think that a lot of it's in fun, but Edgar is an extremely talented reporter and a good question asker, and I know that sometimes his questions can come off as, well, what are you going at with this? But he's got a very inquisitive mind, and really has helped me think outside the box in many ways. And, you know, I think I'm someone who talks way more than I should and listens not enough. And he really has helped me in that way to think, you know, of things differently. And that is, I think, I'm not getting this big diatribe, but I think in this world, you know, we consistently have to challenge what we know in our views and look elsewhere, even if you don't fully agree with it, just to confirm what you know. And you know, I'm not trying to get political in anything. I'm just speaking existential. Reasons. But I read everyone else's work to see if there's something I'm missing, if they're making a point that I'm missing, and to also get better appreciation of everyone else around me and what I'm aspiring to be. And, you know, for Edgar, if anyone got to know Edgar and sat in a bar with him, or, you know, he's actually not a bar. Does not drink anymore. If anyone had 5 minutes to sit and talk to Edgar, they would have a newfound appreciation for him. So I got to say,
sit down and talk with Pat Dooley and Rob Andrews. I mean,
same thing.
That you can find a great appreciation for them as well. And of course, some guy named Zach Alberverdi. I don't know you ever heard of the guy. You know,
yeah, he's all right.
He used to be your boss. I'll tell you a great story about Zach. A couple of years ago, about maybe 5-6 years ago, this one Vernon Hargraves. He was, I think it was his junior year, and Zach had a video camera and was videotaping, was doing the live view of the practices.
Oh, yeah.
And I punch in and I say, texting, I said, do you think that Vernon Hargraves will come back for his senior year? That's got to be the most stupidest question I think I've ever read in my life. I'm like, what? You know, but
no, it was an optimistic one. It was an optimistic one.
Yeah, I know, because I was trying to be optimistic. So
and to credit, you know, Florida fans deserve to think that after Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer, it wasn't outside their own possibility that Gainesville is a good enough place that some people will come back and they'll even have a better pro career. You never know.
Like that, where is Vernon Hargraves today? I don't even know where he is today. Do you? Honestly, seriously, tell me. Do you know? I don't know where he is.
Know, I think that he wasn't a great fit in the Bucs system. I think that he does have a NFL future. I said the same thing about Joe Hayden, 5 years ago? Oh, he's done, and he's still playing at a high level. I think that Vernon Hargraves has a few more years of football left in him. But with the COVID pandemic, I hate to keep bringing it back there. It was so hard for guys to get that second chance who had been out of the league for a year. Look at Cam Newton, you know, getting the $1 million contract. I think a lot of people, especially after last night, it's like, oh, well, you know, their other options were not much better.
Yeah.
Guys like Vernon Hargraves, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I think he'll be back in the league at some point. We'll see, though. It's tough. Deep is a tough position to keep.
While you're talking, I was able to Google search Vernon Hargraves. He's with the Texans now. So
he is? Okay. See, there you go. That shows how.
ironically, because they fired their coach today, Bill O'Brien, so I'm kind of shocked by that. Look, I wish we could talk more. I know you have to go. I know you got things you want
will
to.
next time.
Yeah. Listen. Anytime that you like to join me, please Twitter me. Send me a direct message. Are you on Facebook too?
I check it once in a while. I have one.
Okay.
Yeah, you can message me there. Once
Okay.
in a blue moon,
Cool.
I'm checking it. We'll
Listen,
recap Georgia or something. This was great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you
let me know.
any time that you want to join me, I would love to have you, and I have fun.
Oh,
So
yeah, absolutely. This was great. This was excellent. Great
Graham,
questions, Joe. Thank you, man.
thank you very much for joining me. Have a great one, and God bless.
Hey, y'all take care out there. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless. We'll
Thank
talk after this game. Good luck.
There you go. Bye bye. Thank you, Graham Hall, the beat writer for the Gainesville Sun, who always does an excellent job, and you know, always he's just a fantastic writer, and I'm so appreciative of him coming on. So let me do this right here real quick because I can't end it without doing this here in just a minute here. Okay, so again, let me give you a brief rundown of what's going to be happening. Okay, we're going to have the Buccaneer game on Thursday night. I'm thinking about doing play-by-play commentary. I don't know if anybody wants to see that. Shoot me a message on Facebook or tell me what you think about that. I tried to do that at the Gator game, but didn't work out too well. Didn't have enough time to do that. But if y'all want me to play a commentary for that, I will. Next week, we will not have Buccaneer Animal Football Insider. I'm going to take a few days off. We'll be back the following Thursday and talk about not only what happened at the Bears game, but also, well, actually, if you stop and think about that, that works out well because after the game on Thursday, the Bucs don't play on Sunday. They have a next home game, so we'll be back to talk about that game as well. Maybe have another guest on. Maybe if Graham's patient enough, we'll be able to do that as well. We got wow. I've been on this place for let's see here. I got to do this right here. So I want to share this as well. So as I close it out, thank you. Really? You would like to see that, Mike? Huh. Mike says play-by-play commentary would be great. Okay. Let's see here. He says play-by-play would be great. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens here and during the course of the day. But like I said, thank you all for joining me. You all make it a great day. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Until then, you know what that means.
I'm tripping in orange and blue, tripping in orange and blue, tripping in orange and blue, tripping in orange and blue. I'm tripping in orange and blue, tripping in orange and blue, tripping in orange and blue. I'm tripping in orange and blue.
Thank you so much to Graham Hall for joining me tonight on the Animal Football Insider. I hope you guys have liked it as well. We'll see you probably not this Thursday, probably a week from Thursday. We'll see how that all works out. Until then, we'll be dripping in orange and blue. Go Gators. Have a great time. Fox Bears Thursday night on Fox. Y'all make a great day and God bless.
to the house like a little okay. Walked in, think I'm big money. Everybody with me want bliss, son. Everybody in the crowd get a shot. We gon' get live, y'all ain't saying that.
See you later, people.
Man, we from the cloud. This for ESPN talking down. Ain't no like it, well, we in the field. We in the swamp with no chills. We in the swamp with white buffalo. She a